Updates in the Bill Ackman quest to cancel the presidents of UPenn, Harvard, and MIT. Obviously, UPenn's president stepped down a couple weeks ago. Claudine Gay resigned from Harvard after new plagiarism accusations surfaced in the Washington Free Beacon. Bill Ackman setting his sights now on MIT, but his plan hit a bit of a snag when it was reported in Business Insider that Bill Ackman's celebrity academic wife, Neri Oxman's dissertation is marred by plagiarism. Wow. Business Insider writes, the billionaire hedge fund manager and major Harvard donor Bill Ackman seized on revelations that Harvard's president, Claudine Gay, had plagiarized some passages in her academic work to underscore his calls for her removal following what he perceived as her mishandling of large protests against Israel's bombardment of Gaza on Harvard's campus. An analysis by Business Insider found a similar pattern of plagiarism by Ackman's wife, Neri Oxman, who became a tenured professor at, where? The Massachusetts Institute of Technology in 2017. That's the only way this story could get sweeter, is if she were actually employed at one of the universities whose presidents he is trying to cancel. In fact, this is the last one on his list, at least in the short term. Oxman plagiarized multiple paragraphs of her 2010 doctoral dissertation, Business Insider found, including at least one passage directly lifted from other writers without citation. Her husband, Ackman, has taken a hardline stance on plagiarism. On
like
Wednesday,
he gives a shit.
Yeah, like he gives a shit. On Wednesday, responding to news that Gay is set to remain a part of Harvard's faculty after she resigned as president, he wrote on X that Gay should be fired completely due to serious plagiarism issues. In other words, her resignation as president's not enough for him. He wants her fired from the campus altogether. In Oxman's dissertation, completed at MIT, she plagiarized a 1998 paper by two Israeli scholars, Steve Weiner and H. Daniel Wagner, a 2006 article published in the journal Nature by New York University historian Peter Enker, and a 1995 paper published in the Proceedings of the Royal Society of London. She also lifted from a book published in 1998 by the German physicist Klaus Mathek, and in a more classical mode of plagiarism, copied one paragraph from Mathek without any quotation or attribution. So here you go, a side-by-side comparison.
Okay, all right. I've just got to say, I know that you didn't go to college, they wouldn't have you, but for those of us who did go to college, I don't understand why people would even do this. It's simple enough to just put quotation marks and a fucking footnote. Like, why?
Yeah,
It's not like you're not allowed to quote other sources. It's the nature of academic writing that you cite other things to bolster your argument. Why even do this? Why?
But if you do too many of those in the same paper, it looks like you hardly wrote any of your own content in the paper. I think that's why people don't do it.
You think
As someone
so?
who did
You think it's
spend
just
3 or
that
4 semesters in college, yeah.
you think
of
it's just
course.
that? Well, he's in college. He's in college now. He's getting something in what, merchandise marketing and fashion. He's
Yeah,
getting a
right.
degree in right now. He's
Yeah.
He's at FIT.
I'm at FIT now. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, I mean, you do this so that it doesn't look like you're just piecing together the paper from other sources. You do it so that you look like you're writing stuff that's original.
I mean, I suppose
between
if-
the cited works.
Yeah, I suppose if the entire paper is just a lift of other people's ideas and concepts, then you'd have to resort to that. That's the only reason you would, if you just have no real original writing in the paper.
Exactly. So here she is again. They just list some examples, just like we saw in the Claudine Gay example. That passage was included in its entirety in Oxman's dissertation. She cited Weiner and Wagner, but did not include the passage in quotation marks, a violation of MIT's Academic Integrity Handbook, both as it is currently written and as it was at the time. So you see, sometimes she would lift a passage exactly, cite it, but not quote it, right? Because you can do that in an academic paper. If you borrow an idea directly from another source, you just put the author's name in parentheses at the end of the sentence without actually
Right.
putting quote marks around it. See, I know enough about academic writing to know that you can do that. But in some cases, she didn't even do that. And these are obviously, as you can see, pretty big sections that she just copied and pasted over.
All right. You know how I learned how to properly write a paper? I would not have learned because they don't normally teach it. I had this old school European teacher for my theater history class, of all things, to take seriously the form of paper writing. He was like John Houseman in The Paper Chase, this guy. He actually spoke like him. First day of class, he says, "In the great wisdom of the 1960s, they decided to dispense with freshman composition. We have been paying for it ever since. So in addition to teaching you theater history, I've taken it upon myself to teach you how to write a paper properly." Which he did. And you know what? That's how I was able to make a living after college. Because the only job I was able to get with the skills I had accrued at college was writing papers. I was writing people's term papers for a living for a while.
Yeah, doing the ghostwriter thing.
Yep.
Yeah, see? So you helped people cheat in college.
I did. I might have helped her.
Yeah, there you go. Like Oxman, Gay was found to have lifted passages from other academics' work without using quotation marks while citing the authors. Gay's plagiarism was seen by some academics, including many of those she plagiarized, as relatively inconsequential. George Reed Andrews, a history professor at the University of Pittsburgh and one of the people Gay plagiarized, told the New York Post that what Gay did happens fairly often in academic writing, yes, which is what I said, and for me does not rise to the level of plagiarism. Quote, "I'm glad she read my work, learned from it, and recommended it to her readers," Andrews continued. But for Bill Ackman, the plagiarism wasn't only cause for Gay's immediate ouster as Harvard's president. It also warranted her total removal from its faculty. In the weeks leading up to her resignation as president, he posted more than a dozen times about her plagiarism on X. Now, in response to these revelations about his wife's plagiarism, he tweeted a more than 5,000 word screed on Twitter. This is the same guy who wrote that letter that RFK endorsed, the one that went on forever and ever and ever. He posted this in response to news about his wife. "Last night, no one at MIT had a good night's sleep. Yesterday evening, shortly after I posted that we were launching a plagiarism review of all current MIT faculty, President Kornbluth, members of MIT's administration and its board, I am sure that an audible collective gasp could be heard around the campus. Why? Well, every faculty member knows that once their work is targeted by AI, they will be outed. Every faculty member, no body of written work in academia can survive the power of AI searching for missing quotation marks, failures to paraphrase appropriately, and or the failure to properly credit the work for others. Here's the big one, my highlighting, of course. Now that we know that academic body of work of every faculty member at every college and university in the country and eventually the world is going to be reviewed for plagiarism, it's important to ask what the implications are going to be if every faculty member is held to the current plagiarism standards of their own institutions and universities and force their own rules. They would likely have to terminate the substantial majority of faculty members.
Sounds like a good idea to me. This is where I'm with you.
If this were durable enough to drop, I'd drop it. Because what did I tell you? What did I tell you as soon as this broke? I said you could nail anybody for this. Anybody. And now that his wife got nailed for it, he tweets out, yeah, well, if you scrub every academic paper with AI, you're going to find plagiarism everywhere. Everyone does this. This is how academic papers are written. You read shit, you put it in your own words or not, and you put it in your paper. And of course, you do it more than you say you do because you can't admit that your paper is nothing more than a patchwork collection of borrowed material from other papers. So yeah, everyone fucking does it. And now Ackman himself, once his wife gets exposed, says, yeah, well, I suppose if you took an AI scrubber to every academic paper, you would find this all the time.
Uh-huh. Yeah. This is what happens when the purpose of a university becomes manufacturing of credentials rather than the exploration and expansion of knowledge. The purpose of a university is supposed to be research and training people to do research and training people to perform complicated tasks in society. Now it's just manufacturing credentials in order to move up the economic ladder, or depending on what kind of family you're from, maintaining your place in the economic ladder. So what incentive do they have not to do this?
Right.
They're not actually trying to expand the sphere of human knowledge. They're just trying to get credentials. So why would you put real effort into these papers?
Absolutely. And on the other side of this, if you are pursuing the kind of enlightenment that you think academia is there to give you, then it shouldn't bother you that much when someone else plagiarizes a paper. If they're plagiarizing a paper, the only way that affects you is that it makes you less competitive in the marketplace. But if that's really not why you're there, then what difference does it make to you? If somebody cheats on a paper, they're only cheating themselves at that point, are they not?
Well, that's not true, because you're undermining the entire premise of these institutions, and that's how you wound up with these institutions losing all credibility and winding up with entire faculties that could be rightly accused of plagiarism. So that's the problem. It bothered me when I was
still get what you need out of the college, can you not?
Not really, if everything is being rotted root and branch. I felt like that when I was in college, and this is before all of this went so far. I was amazed because I was a high school dropout. I mean, obviously, somebody who read a lot, that's how I wound up going on to college. So I had language skills beyond what you would expect from somebody who dropped out of high school. But I was shocked when I looked at the writing of my fellow students who had many more advantages in life than I did. Most of them came from, good homes and had all graduated high school. And when I read their papers, I couldn't believe how bad their writing was. I couldn't believe they had been pushed through the system and allowed to go to college writing like that. And I actually felt cheated by it. I felt like this is where we agree. I felt like most of these people should not be in college, because the way that I thought of college was what I'm describing now. It's for the expansion of knowledge, doing research, training people in highly specialized tasks. And when I looked at these papers that people were writing, I said, 80% of people don't need to go to college. And all it's doing is dragging down the standards that a university should be held to, because it's a business. They want to get asses in the seats. They want to crank out degrees, so they don't hold them to the standards that a university really should be holding people to before they admit you. Now, if you are somebody who belongs in a university, of course that affects you, because they can't teach at the level that you could absorb, because most of the class wouldn't be able to follow it. They wouldn't be able to meet that standard.
Please clap.